talked several times on Facebook, and finally, over the course of the last few weeks, got to hang out a little bit. Mark Dowdy, welcome to In the Dirt, brother.
Well, thank you, Webb. How are you doing tonight?
I'm struggling. My guests our guests are turning us down. I don't know if they forgot, if it's but about every 3 months, right, Brian? We have a show like this.
Yeah, it comes around every few months, and I think what it is people, they just get busy, Webb. That's all there is to it.
Now, you can't talk about Mark Dowdy unless you talk about about his situation. He's of course, a super late model driver. He's one of the original 16 that's taken part in the Chevrolet Performance Super Late Model Series, owned by Crate Racing USA's Mike Vaughn. Mark, you talk about an accident you had 5 years ago on a motorcycle, and in relation to how long you've been racing to that point.
Well, back in 2008, May of 2008, I was riding my motorcycle to work and was hit head-on by a Dodge pickup truck. And the resulting injuries were 11 broken ribs, 2 collapsed lungs, busted back in 3 places, and a severed spinal cord. And I had raced 20 years up until that point. I started racing in 1988 in a street stock. In 1989, I went into an IMCA modified and raced modifieds up until 1999. And that's what 99 is when I bought my first late model, went into the late model division.
So in a flash, so something that you love dearly, and most racers would say the same thing. Yeah, the racing was what turned the screws for them. In a moment, you lost it all. How long did it take you to get to where you thought, hey, I'm not dead yet, I want to do this again?
Actually, while I was in the hospital still, I was in a coma for a few days. And when I came out of that, it took me a little bit to process everything that was going on and what have you. And, of course, I spent my angry time where I was mad at the world. But then between the help of my daughters and one of my physical therapists that I had, everybody said, you got to find something that really drives you and really motivates you. And you got to grab a hold of that or else you're not going to get out of this funk. And other than my daughters, the only thing that really drove me or motivated me was racing. And I just grabbed a hold of racing and figured I can figure this out. I was actually just about that point where I realized I was actually a very lucky guy because my accident happened in the state of Indiana, and in Indiana you're not required to wear a helmet. And I was one of those motorcycle riders who never wore my helmet. And you get hit head-on by a Dodge pickup truck not wearing a helmet. I didn't have a scrape one on my head or any type of physical injury other than my internal injuries. And just the nature of my accident, and for me to come out that way, I was so lucky, and I didn't realize that until I met some people with head injuries. And I realized then, I said, I've still got 100% abilities from the waist up. I've still got a good sound mind. I can still process information. There's no reason I can't do this. So that's when I went to work on it.
And Brian Gray's my co-host. Brian, you're going to really appreciate this part of the story. Now, you have an interesting way that you control the race car from a brake standpoint and from an accelerator standpoint. Talk to us about the evolution of and I don't even know what you guys call it, but the evolution of your controls.
Well, it's in about its 7th different stage right now. We've been doing this. I've been back in the car 4 years now. I'm sorry. I've been injured 5 years. I've been back in the car 4 years. And we've had this thing cut apart and put back together about 7 different times now. And it started out a steering wheel with a BMX brake type controller lever that ran the throttle, and another lever that was a motorcycle master cylinder type thing that ran the brake. Well, that didn't work very well because trying to brake a 2,300-pound dirt late model with your two fingers and a small master cylinder. Just, it doesn't work. So we morphed and changed and cut and designed and basically ended up where we're at now, to where I run the throttle with paddles, like a paddle shifter on these fancy Formula One cars and what have you. And I do the braking through my steering column, in which I push forward on my steering wheel, and that pushes on the brake pedal as if any other driver would push on the brake pedal with their left foot. I just trail the brakes by by pushing forward on the steering wheel and applying pressure.
I mean, that's just,
yeah, that's ingenious.
Yeah, it's just, to me, you think about all the things that people in your situation. It's not a condition; it's just a situation. You've handled your situation well, but you look at all the people in your situation, and you think, "My goodness, why isn't everybody doing this? Why isn't everybody?" How much trial and error? I mean, obviously the two fingers and the brake cylinder. But what were some of the other interesting, maybe not so good ideas with this system?
Oh, several really. The BMX brake style throttle only gave me about 3/4 throttle of the carburetor. We could never really get it designed right to where we could get full throw of the carburetor linkage with the limited travel we were allowed on the BMX brake lever. So then we went to back in the 80s and 90s, Honda was actually way ahead of their time. They made what would now be called a UTV, but at that time they considered it a go-kart. It's called a Honda Odyssey, or a Pilot, and it had a thumb throttle on the steering wheel, sort of like a four-wheeler does today, or a jet ski. So we went to that, and that worked great as far as getting full throw of the carburation linkage, but it just wore your arm out after about 25 laps, because your right arm, just running that thumb in and out, in and out, and in and out, with a throttle return spring on the carburetor, it just wore you. You had arm pump like you wouldn't believe. So then we thought if you're ever going to run more than 25 laps, this isn't going to work. So then we started figuring out, well, what can we do to where you can use your fingers rather than just one thumb? And so that's when we came up with the paddle idea. And it was a slow evolution. Some of it was an evolution of necessity because of, like we said, the motorcycle master cylinder and two fingers just won't slow down a 2,300-pound race car that's going over 100 miles an hour. And so we had to, that was an evolution of necessity. Some of it was an evolution of to be competitive, like the throttle adjustment, what have you. And it was a combination of the two. One, we need to do some things for safety. You need to be able to stop on a dime. If you, just like any other driver can just mash the brake pedal and stop, I needed to be able to mash the brake pedal and stop too. And now I can do that because I'm using my forearms to stop rather than two fingers. And I also, for competitive sense, I needed to be able to stand on a throttle and get all that I could. And now I can do that because I can get all the way back and get full throttle throw with the paddle system that we've developed.
Now, have you met anybody else who's wanting to get in racing that may be in the same situation you are as far as being in the chair? Is this something you could mass produce if you wanted to, or get somebody else, train somebody else to use it? Or, I mean, is it something as that, can you replicate it?
Replicating the equipment isn't real difficult because we used a lot of the stuff we used is already out there. We just morphidited it and adapted it to our situation. We really didn't reinvent the wheel. We just took several things from other areas of other sports and other industry and put another wheel together that just operates differently. The thing about being in my situation, in any situation like this, is your physical abilities. It takes a lot of upper body strength to do this because we have a 2-to-1 steering reducer in front of a real high ratio rack and pinion, so that makes my car steers a little harder than most because of that. And so you really have to have a real good upper body. And this type of injury can make somebody's upper body almost weak, because if they get dependent on a power chair or something like that, it's like with any other injury. If you don't use muscle, you lose it. So we've talked to a few people that wanted to do this, and after I explained to them what was necessary, they just weren't able, because after their injury they had gotten into a power chair or something and had just lost a lot of their upper body function. And it takes a lot of upper body function to do this. We have helped one local racer here he's actually in southern Tennessee area. We helped him get back in the car, and he's doing it part-time as he's able to do it until he can get physically put back up there. But the biggest thing is the physical aspect of somebody with this type of injury. You have to find somebody who hasn't been injured too long, or I'm sorry, you don't have to find somebody. If you're somebody that wants to get into this, you have had to have kept your upper body active. Like with my situation, my physical therapist that I had, he gave me the best advice in the world. He said, don't ever let them put you in a power wheelchair. So for 4 years, I was in my manual wheelchair and didn't have any power assist at all. Well, of course, this year I have my power chair, my action track chair, which is my sponsor, and I use that at the race.
Which is awesome.
I use that at the race to get around some of these pit areas.
And it would run over, Brian. It would run over smart cars. It's a tractive vehicle. And it's not a chair. It's a tractive vehicle. And I don't ever have time, but I want to ride it at some point. I want to ride this thing.
I'll tell you what, that thing is an eye catcher. And I tell people that are interested in getting one, I said, if you're not comfortable with being stared at, and you're not comfortable with being at the center of attention, this isn't for you, because people are going to look at you. I mean, when I go through the pit area, I often wonder if I've got my underwear on my head or something, because, I mean, you're going to catch a lot of attention. But it is it's amazing.
Now, Brian, this next story is just when I heard it after it all happened. I didn't hear it from him. I heard it from other people. But so, Mark, and I hate to bring it up, but we were at Penton Raceway, and Penton Raceway is in South Alabama. It's just about an hour shy of East Alabama Motor Speedway, and you guys had done some laps and hot laps, and a hole had developed in the speedway. So it caught your guys' back right, and you went for a little bit of a ride, correct?
Correct. Wasn't nothing anybody did wrong. Wasn't nothing the racetrack did wrong, because actually the hole was at the very top of the track where nobody races. I just happened to go into the track and slid up a little high, and the right rear went right into that hole. And before I knew it, the car was upside down several times, and I was on my lid laying up against the wall on the outside, well, not the outside of the racetrack, but I hadn't went over the wall or nothing, but I was up against the wall next to the barrier to go into the pit area.
Well, of course, as in all racetracks, Brian, the EMTs rushed to the scene, and the one EMT, a female, I believe, looks in the window at Mark and says, "What, Mark?"
She asked me if I was okay, and I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm okay." And then she asked me if I'd go ahead and unbuckle and come on out of the car.
And you responded?
I says, well, I really rather not. I says, I'm paralyzed. And this look came over her face like she was staring at the ghost of her great-grandfather or something. And he said, well, how do you know you're paralyzed? And I said, well, I've been paralyzed for almost 5 years now. And some other people must have been there that knew a little bit about the situation, because I heard some other laughter around the side of the car and everything, and it just kind of broke up a tense moment.
I will tell you that track owner Bill Edge was one of those people, and he was not laughing because somebody said he heard you say it, and he said the color drained from his face, and then somebody said he's just joking. He said the color almost didn't come back. So, oh man. So what I mean, and thank you for filling in for some guests that didn't call in, but what is the competitors when you first came back? Of course, in Tennessee, North Alabama, and the South Tennessee area, people knew who you were. They knew of your accident. What were some of the things that your competitors were saying when they knew you were bringing an experimental vehicle to the racetrack?
Well, the first time we just didn't tell anybody. We showed up at Thunderhill Raceway in Summertown, Tennessee. Me and a good friend of mine, Dennis Brewer. Everybody around this area parts knows him as Sleepy B. He's the one that helped me develop this. We just loaded the car up and went to Thunderhill, and I got in the car, and there was 22 cars at the 22 limited late models there that night. It was the steelhead type late models, and I went out and qualified 16th, and our plan was to just stay in the back and let's play with this and see what happens, and I did. I stayed in the back the whole race. We got lapped right at the end of the race. It was a 25-lap feature. I got lapped right at the end of the race. And there again, my right arm was killing me from running the throttle the whole thing. And that was the first physical activity I'd done in a year since I got out of the hospital, other than pushing my wheelchair. And then after the word, of course, you don't keep something like that a secret too long. After the word got out, and most of my competitors, most of the guys, like you said, they knew me and what have you. They just kind of stood back and thought, well, we're just going to watch and see what happens. Everybody kind of held comment until they saw what happened. And over the next few weeks, I did the exact same thing. We'd stay in the back and just stay out of trouble and develop. And pretty soon, between the combination of me developing to the system and us developing the system to be more efficient, we got more competitive. And when I'd start in the back, I just started working my way up forward. And pretty soon we started qualifying in the top fives and running in top tens, and next thing you know, we're qualifying in top threes and running in top fives, and it just took over from there.
Yeah. Now, do you know of any other? I've heard of. I think there was one ARCA or Busch or NASCAR team that a driver had something similar. Is there another dirt late model that has a modified control so a person can drive suited to their what their body's giving them? And do you know of anybody else?
Other than mine, I know of no other. There's the one that we helped develop for the boy in Southern Tennessee. Other than mine in the dirt world, there is a dirt sprint car driver, Danny Pollock, out of Indiana. He was doing it for a while. I don't know if Danny's still racing or not. And then the boy you were talking about earlier, he was running NASCAR late models in California. His name was Ricky James.
That's right.
He was racing at Irwindale Speedway, and I think they've closed Irwindale. And Ricky
Irwindale shut down.
And Ricky has went to racing the torque style off-road trucks.
Wow.
Kind of like the Evan stuff. Yeah,
now I know, but to overcome a situation like that is just amazing. Certainly should be an inspiration to everybody, not only from a human spirit deal. I mean, it's very cool that, like you said, you were in you had your hatred for the world, and then you realize, whoa, hey, I gotta do something. So fast forward to now, you guys are taking part in the inaugural season for the 525. It's the Chevrolet Performance Super Late Model Series. And over the weekend, of course, we got rained out twice, not once but twice at Tazewell. But we had a fan zone. We had the cars up near the grandstand, basically, right there. Everybody walks in at, and about 8 of you, and you were one of the guys. And what were some of the fans' responses to you? And did they ask why you were sitting in the window of your car?
Well, the first 15 or 20 minutes of that autograph session, that fan zone area, people would just look at me. I was sitting on the edge of my car, and I've got a little door that opens up to give me better access in and out of the car. It's not a door per se like a car door. It's just a little flap, the top 8 inches of my driver's door folds down to the top door bar so I can get in and out a little easier. And people, I don't voluntarily tell a whole lot of people about my situation. And people go, oh, well, that's a neat way to give you some more room, or I've had people call it a fat man's door or what have you. They say, well, we always wondered how you got in and out of these cars. And I just kind of laughed and said, yeah, there's all kinds of ways. Well, then about like some 15 minutes or so into the period, Roby Helms, the series announcer, came up and did a small interview there with us. And that's when Roby asked me some of the similar questions you're asking me. And next thing I know, I looked out over the grandstands while we're talking. A lot of people were stopped and listening, and I was flooded after that with people. And that's when they realized why I was just sitting on the door of my car rather than standing next to the car like all the other drivers. And then everybody wanted to, of course, everybody's got their questions, and many of them similar to the ones you asked me, and I have no problem answering questions about the situation at all, just in case anybody else is interested in doing something like this. But, boy, then we were covered up after that, and
business was good.
Yeah, business was good. I should have carried my T-shirt. But
yeah. Now you said too that since Saturday, your Twitter and your Facebook and social media has exploded for you. You're getting inundated with requests to be in friends and followers.
My friend request from people in the East Tennessee area has really exploded. Our website, we have a tracker on our website that shows what region people are in that have checked out our website day to day, and the East Tennessee area has really exploded. We did get, as you know, we got some rain in East Tennessee when we were over there in Tazewell this weekend, but we did get to get on the track for a little bit. We did some hot lap sessions, and we got qualifying done. And so between the website being on the race car and the little spot that Roby did on the PA system and have it, plus the word of mouth going to the pit area, when people see you riding on this mini tank to the pit area, well, then someone tells somebody else, hey, look at that, and then they said, oh, yeah, you didn't hear that he drives this car and what have it. Word spreads quick. So, our Facebook account, Dowdy Racing on the Facebook account, and www.dowdyracing.com has really gotten a lot of traffic from the East Tennessee area since Saturday.
Well, Mark, I'm certainly proud to know you. We got to hang out. I think Penton, where we first kind of really got to shake hands. We've talked several times online. Buddy, just great to know you. I'm glad you're going to be with us on that 525 series. If we can get one of them in, the rain is just awful. But thank you for bailing us out tonight here on In the Dirt. Before I let you get out of here, I want you to thank some of the sponsors on the side of that 88 car of yours and the guys who helped turn the wrenches on that thing.
Well, I have to say thanks to ActionTrackCharity.com, obviously, for giving me back some mobility and the ability to stand up again. And then Rather Sewer Inspection Services out of East Tennessee, Josh Plant from JPM Motorsports Promotions. He does my website and a lot of our social media stuff, as well as Killer Race Cars, Killer Chassis out of Nicholasville, Kentucky. They build us some great race cars, and that was apparent 2 weeks ago when we did the rollover in Penton. The car was in beautiful shape. I wasn't even sore. And then I have to thank Lee Strong, my cousin, who does at least 75% of the work on this thing at the racetrack when I'm busy talking to people and doing whatever it is I get caught up doing. Lee's stuck with doing most of the work. And then when we're at the shop, me and him try to split it as much as we can. But I got to thank Lee for all the work he does on it.
Well, all right. Well, like I said, thank you for rescuing us here on the In the Dirt. Our Monday lineup, I don't know, just fizzled on us. Nobody called. Well, we got Tim Fuller to call, but it happens on occasion. Well, Mark, you guys take it easy. Where are you headed? I know we're off for a week or so. Where are you headed this weekend coming up?
Right. Our big focus is always going to be on the Chevrolet 525 series. But this weekend, we've got an off weekend. We'll probably go to Tennessee National Raceway on Saturday with our two-barrel car. We'll go up there and run just a regular show and get it out, have a little bit of fun. And when the next 525 race comes around, I believe it's August 6th or 7th, we go to Why Not Motorsports Park in Mississippi, and then the following night we're in Magnolia in Mississippi. We'll get the 525 car out and hit the road with the 525 crew again, and I'll tell you what, I'm really loving that series.
Bring your shirts to Fan Zone.
Okay, yeah, we will.
All right, Mark, we'll talk to you later, brother. Thank you for rescuing us tonight.
All right, Webb, Brian, you have a good night.